In February of 2022, Great Gaming was founded almost entirely by accident as I uploaded two really terrible videos showing off two settlements that I was particularly proud of, Starlight Drive-In and Kingsport Lighthouse. After a few months hiatus, I returned to the channel and started continuing to upload settlement walkthroughs, each gradually improving in quality as I improved my studio, my gaming rig, and just became more comfortable behind a microphone. I even recorded remastered walkthroughs of some of those first settlements, and even did a Commonwealth Contractor series where I went through my Starlight Tower build floor by floor and completely redesigned it to make more efficient use of space, remove unnecessary objects, and overall drastically improved performance. But you were all deceived. For in secret, there remained another settlement walkthrough, forged at Warwick Homestead, that was just as poor quality, just as rambly, and featured some pretty poor design choices. So today, I'm going to be almost completely tearing down the worst elements of my Warwick Homestead settlement, building replacements using new techniques that I've learned over the past 3 years of on-again, off-again settlement building, and capping it off next week with a new settlement builds for noobs walkthrough. So let's start scrapping because this place is an mess. The first and easiest order of business is going to be replacing the 4 powered water pumps with a single industrial water purifier. Both arrangements provide the same amount of water, 40 units, which is far in excess of what this settlement's population requires, but the purifier sits across the water line where there's nothing built and won't take up valuable real estate on land. It's also more energy efficient, using less power than 4 powered pumps would, and with fewer polygons to render, this is going to increase our system performance. This entire wall arrangement was a decent enough idea in theory. The use of a powered shop door means that there's a wide, easily accessible means of accessing the settlement during normal conditions, and cutting power to the door means the door can be shut during attacks. However, a major failing of mine was not recognizing the enemy spawn points when I placed the walls, and I simply placed the wall as close to the settlement's boundaries as I could. This unfortunately means that my wall was straddling the spawn point for enemy attackers. So during attack scenarios, half of the attackers would spawn on the outside of the walls but too close for the turrets to be able to engage, and half of them would spawn inside the walls where they were almost completely ineffective. Completely dismantling the wall and moving it back a full 2 floor sections, that was hard to say, in depth, this means that now all attackers will spawn outside the wall and will have to take a swim if they want to move around it. The wall featured a clinic and open-air barbershop integrated into its interior. However, the clinic is going to be moved to the main market structure because there's a bunch of junk popping through the floor and cleanliness was a little too Todd design-friendly for my liking. Instead, I've converted the clinic to just a basic storage room filled with barrels and crates and junk and stuff. The barbershop is more or less the same that it was before, with a little more scrappy of an aesthetic than I usually go for, with most of the chairs appearing to be salvaged rather than brand new fabrication. A major benefit of Warwick Homestead is the heavy concrete control building that served as the Warwick's primary residence. I had placed a raised platform near the house and attached to the wall to support 2 artillery pieces and raised them to the point that they can observe the horizon over the defenses. However, the problem with this arrangement is that the platform just looks a bit too rickety to support the giant concrete pads that the guns are mounted on, and there's a higher, more sturdily constructed platform already here. I've just never built up to the top of the roof before. So setting up some temporary steps to get me to the top of the roof, laying down a platform so the stairs are set the right height, and then running the steps down along the side of the building allows settlers to reach the roof. And moving both guns to the roof now gives an even more commanding view of the horizon. I'd played around with trying to make actual use of this septic settling pool without resorting to rug or pillar glitching, but unfortunately, I just had to eventually give up on that plan. So instead, I just decided to add some lightweight railing and stairs to get us into the completely unused outbuilding with a lot of unscrappable industrial stuff inside. This will now serve as the new machine shop, serving as home for the robot workbench, which really isn't necessary at this location, but I'm trying not to compromise the utility of the settlement in any way with my remodel, so anything that's currently here will be here when I'm done remodeling. The nuclear generator was also relocated here, which did require some fresh electrical runs to the structure, notably some conduit to run electrical past the interior walls of the structure, but once I tied power back to the streetlight system, everything else is back up and running. While we're on that topic, throughout this process, I did add a number of street lamps and removed a number of power pylons, since street lamps can effectively serve double duty of helping run electrical over long outdoor distances, and it makes your settlement brighter at night, so it's a win-win. Returning to the machine shop, there were a number of workbenches that I had just thrown into the background of the various shops that make up the promenade that I decided would be more at home in a dedicated workshop, so into the machine shed they go. It's also a bit dark in here, so spreading some lights around a bit is naturally a must. The last little touch is I'm going to move the recruitment beacon from the front of the house to a platform behind the machine shop. Now pretty much all electrical and crafting goes on in this one spot. Another quick fix that I've learned a solution for since building at the site is the shower. I like to rig up decontamination arches as makeshift showers in my settlements, and while yeah, if you've ever used a decon shower, you know it's not exactly the most relaxing experience people go for, but it is the closest we get in main game besides a claw tub missing a claw in plumbing. But the problem with a decon arch is it's just slightly taller than the concrete walls used for the shower room, so there's no way to put a roof in after the arch is in place, but you can just lift the floor out, which will carry the arch with it, set a roof piece, and then move the floor back in, giving you a snap glitch-ish method of making something fit that otherwise wouldn't. Then we just have to hook the power back up through the connector that's now clipped through the ceiling, and we're back in business without the open ceiling. The private rooms above the market will more or less stay the same. I'm just going to add some chairs, steamer trunks, and some paintings, as well as flip the doors so that they open inward instead of blocking the walkways when they're left open by all of the settlers who live in these rooms. The continuous open-air market was fine when it was just needed to house weapons, armor, general goods, and clothing, but now that we have to add the clinic, it will work better if I start segmenting these off into individual small stores. So I'm segmenting into 2 shops with 2x2 floor plans and a single 1x2 plan for the clinic. I'm putting clothing and general goods in one, weapons and armor in the other. As I've started doing in most of my other settlements, I am adding some mannequins and weapons racks to display some of the goods on offer, with just some garbage I have sitting in inventory. But something I almost never do is adding some shelves and displaying junk in the general goods store, because usually I feel that most people tend to go overboard with this and they end up cluttering things up unnecessarily, and they just end up making your brand new settlement look like garbage again. That's just my personal opinion, and it's what drives my cleaner aesthetic I normally go for, but here I think it makes a little bit more sense with the aesthetic that's already established. A little extra signage here and there, and some neon to advertise the storefronts, and we're more or less done with this section. For the clinic, I'm just going to add some seating outside for people to wait, since the inside is pretty cramped, and otherwise it's just the doc and Phoraptor operator inside. For the open-air diner, I removed a few stainless steel picnic tables and added a row of dining booths. These clean Nuka-Cola seats have become a staple in my diners, but if you don't have the Nuka-Cola Collector's Creation Pack, you can use the ones from the Vault-Tec Workshop DLC. They're just a bit more worn than I tend to prefer, though there are a couple that are in use in the community housing building. I also added a soda fountain in the back, which will require me to recruit one more settler to operate, so this settlement did expand from 16 to 17 settlers, but the settlement as it's designed does have a total capacity of 19, so we're still golden as far as being able to support more if we need to. The last problem was where to put the gym equipment that's just been thrown about, and I did end up building a small platform over one of the septic pools. It slightly encroaches on the ramp to the arcade shed, but it's still usable. It's just a slight eyesore that I didn't really want to waste too much time fiddling with. Otherwise, the only improvements that I made were just adding some decorations around the settlement and trapped a few dogs, some of which I didn't have to immediately shoot. A couple dog houses tucked into corners, and this settlement is now happier, more secure against attacks, looks a lot better planned out, and for those that think my usual builds are too uniform and not post-apocalyptic enough, a bit more salvage-oriented. The inside of the community center remains almost entirely untouched, with many of the unscrappable beds basically being what forced me into this more scrapper aesthetic than I usually go for, since you can't get rid of them without console commands, and I wanted this to be a build that you could replicate if you were working on one of the consoles that are less mod friendly, or if you just really don't like playing with mods or using console commands to get rid of stuff that normally can't. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on what I was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. Did my changes constitute an improvement? Was there more that I could have done to improve this settlement as I went? There's definitely enough open space that I did free up in the main courtyard that I could add another structure if needed. Or I'd like to know if you still think that this site just sucks. Don't spare my feelings, I'm a big boy, I can take it. And while you're feeding back and stuff in the comments, I just wanted to take a minute to salute my patrons over at Patreon who continue to help me spot early content that my current standards just can't get behind anymore. Special thanks to my Officer Tier patrons, Josh B and Carver050, and continued thanks to my non-coms who keep the grunts on point with loving words of encouragement.
You're a goddamn genius! You are going to be a general someday! You are goddamn gifted!
Until my next salute, stand at ease, and I hope you'll join me next week as I do a settlement builds for noobs walkthrough of Warwick Homestead in its entirety. Until then, stay safe, and I hope to see you here next time on Gray Gaming.